Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Nick Cage Fight podcast, where we discuss the nuances of parenthood, specifically in regards to participating in bank robberies and the handling of grenades. I am one of your hosts, Josh, joined as always by Rich and Ryan, my close friends and solid companions throughout this journey of Nick Cage's filmography. How are we today?
You sound very chipper.
I'm trying. This was a good movie.
Yeah.
I'm excited. This is a good week for me.
Hopefully we get two in a row.
We shall see. Keep our fingers crossed on that die roll. We're, of course, here to wrap up our review and plot synopsis of Raising Arizona. Great film, 1987. Classic, ages pretty well.
Wait, that was a good year for Cage, now that I'm thinking about it, because wasn't Moonstruck also 87?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, 86 or 87. It was a solid year for him.
I'm gonna look this shit up right now. Moonstruck was 87.
Yeah, 87.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, good Cage year.
Very good. So where we last left our protagonist, High, he had just broken the nose of his supervisor or manager at the factory that he worked in, and he did so because this individual, Glenn, was propositioning him for a solid wife swap. And High was not about that swinging lifestyle.
Not for everyone. Not for everyone.
No.
It's fine.
Yeah, absolutely. So High gets admonished pretty hard by Ed for swinging on Glenn. Clearly he's going to lose his job over this, but High, to potentially his credit, I'm not really sure how to read this from a moral standpoint, doesn't tell Ed about the potential impugnment of her honor with Glenn's offer. He just explains it away by saying that Glenn provoked him. So this conversation happens while they're driving in the car with baby Nathan Jr., and they stop at a store to get Huggies because the baby needs diapers. So High goes in while Ed and the baby wait in the car, and he grabs Huggies and a pair of stockings, and he puts the stockings on his head and pulls a gun and decides to, rob the store and stick up the register while he's at it. Ed sees this happening through the front windows of the store and hears a cop car coming. The kid at the register hit a silent alarm button. So Ed peels out, and as High runs out of the front of the convenience store with the Huggies under one arm and stockings on his head, the teen at the register starts firing a massive revolver at him.
That kid's got jacked up teeth too.
Yeah.
There's a lot of jacked up teeth in this. William Forsythe's character's got some pretty fucked up
Chompers.
ivories too. Yeah,
absolutely. So High runs off into the night, chased by gunfire and police cars carrying a huge package of Huggies, and this starts, I don't want to rate them specifically, but starts another one of my favorite bits of comedy in this film, and that is cops and other people firing guns absolutely wildly, indiscriminately, irresponsibly, to a point that it's just fucking hilarious. So cops are just firing at High as he runs off through a residential neighborhood, as he's like running between houses. They're just firing out the window of moving vehicles. Incredibly dangerous, absurdly irresponsible.
Very funny.
Incredibly funny.
So
because they lean
good.
into it. There's no actual explanation or talking it down. It's just visual comedy as they just shoot regardless of what's going on. We do get a classic trope scene here where High hops over a fence, and there is a angry Doberman who is tethered just out of range of biting High's face off. He runs around the perimeter of this yard, and of course, the dog breaks the tether and continues to chase him. He tries to stop a truck on the road that he runs to and gets hit by it, manages to get into the passenger side of this vehicle and stick up the driver and makes him start just flooring it. Ed, in the meantime, comforts Nathan Jr. and says, "We're going to go pick up Dad."
So the guy that he hijacks, he does say you got panties on your head, which I found really fucking funny because we watched Firebirds a couple of weeks ago, which also has a he's got panties on his head moment.
Yeah, and also the truck driver is incorrect. That's pantyhose. It's a very different piece of undergarment.
Yeah.
That's right.
um, so this insane. By the way, if you weren't if you didn't listen to the last episode, A, what are you doing? And B, if you did listen to the last episode, this is the incredibly chaotic scene that I said would be hard to describe. So we're trying our best to do it justice because there's a lot of shit happening in rapid fire, and all of it is very funny. So bear with us as we try and do this the justice that it deserves.
Or
So
just buy the movie because it's worth it.
100%, highly recommend.
You'll
Please.
watch it numerous times.
Yeah, no, this is a classic. It's worth being in your library, 100%. So High is in a truck with a driver that he's stuck up, trying to drive him away from the scene of the crime, where cops are following him, firing indiscriminately into the air and into residential neighborhoods. And also, there's an insane teenager with an absurdly oversized handgun in the mix, and a very violent dog of some sort also running around this neighborhood. Ed pulls a Yui with baby Nathan Jr., we think, in the vehicle to try and go pick up High and get him away from the scene of this crime. As the truck that High is in continues down the road, the psychotic teenager with the oversized revolver that we talked about goes into the road and tries to stop the truck while firing at it. He, of course, gets jumped by the Doberman that broke its tether after High jumped into its backyard. The shit is just chaotic. The truck barely manages to the truck driver barely manages to hit the brakes right before he slams into a household. High gets out and runs into the house with cops chasing him, firing at him from both outside and inside the house. Just indiscriminate shooting completely. Now the Doberman has collected a whole stampede of dogs that are now also included in this scene, running from set piece to set piece. At some point
I love a
during
wild
this,
pack of family dogs.
oh yeah, at
It's
some
so
point
good.
during this chase, High dropped the package of Huggies that he stole from the convenience store that he tried to rob. He finds himself running into a larger grocery store and steals another pack of Huggies. The stampede of dogs are there too, while both cops and civilians. One of the employees of the grocery store has a shotgun for some fucking reason and is firing over one of the aisles.
It's because it's Texas.
Yeah, everybody's just shooting indiscriminately, and he High manages to lose the second pack of Huggies that he has attempted to steal because he throws it at a cop who rounds a corner and has him dead to rights with his gun leveled. So High hits him with the pack of Huggies, throwing off his aim and allowing him to continue his escape. He runs out into the parking lot where Ed squeals up and picks him up, and they make good their escape. But as they're driving down the road, High manages to lean out the passenger side of the station wagon that they're driving and snag the initial stolen pack of Huggies from the convenience store where it's lying in the center of the road. This, by the way, snatching something up from the center of the road while driving, is a bit that we will revisit in the future. Great scene, my favorite scene in the entirety of the film. And that has some stiff competition because there is literally an insane biker who throws a grenade to blow up a bunny rabbit in a desert. That
And shoots a
that's
lizard.
amazing. And and shoots a lizard off
And
a
causes a flower to spontaneously combust just by passing it.
Yes. So good. There's so many fantastic scenes in this film, but this one was just incredibly ambitious, start to finish, and incredibly well done. I love the shit out of it. It was awesome. However, the chaos does have to come to an end because we have to get back to the narrative of this story. The Coen brothers recognize it, so we will as well. We cut to Gail and Avell watching TV and drinking beers when High and Ed get home. Ed comes in and lays down the law. She's had a rough night, all things considered, and tells Gail and Avell that they're out tomorrow, period. So when she goes to bed, Gail sets about trying to convince High to do a bank robbery with them. Gale is at least moderately convincing with his pitch. As far as High is concerned, personally, considering the fact that he ended it with, then we'll just keep robbing banks until we get caught or killed. That doesn't seem like a solid end game to me. But like I said, they do manage to come off as at least mildly convincing to High. So from here we get a cut of the motorcyclist. This is, I believe, because my notes are a little scant on this. I believe this is where he makes a campfire on a bluff overlooking High and Ed's trailer.
Yes.
Yeah. So High sits down and writes a letter to Ed and details how he has to leave, primarily because he cannot be the husband that she deserves, nor the father that Nathan Jr. needs. He promises to send money, and then we cut back to the motorcyclist who, fresh from his perch observing High and Ed's trailer, walks into the unpainted furniture store chain the next day.
There's a cool fucking shot in this that is actually a direct reference to Evil Dead. Did you notice the like steady cam over the car into unpainted Arizonas?
Yes.
Okay, so that is actually a direct reference because the Coen brothers, or at least Joel, worked on Evil Dead. He was one of the editors for that film, and they developed a friendship with Sam Raimi and went on to, like, him and Ethan ended up writing or helping write the screenplay for Crime Wave, a long forgotten Sam Raimi film that had like a lot of production issues. But I just thought it was interesting that they just did the Evil Dead shot.
Yeah, no, that's super cool, and honestly a reference I missed in the watching of this film. Very solid call out. Brief aside, I really desperately want to know from Sam Raimi's lips what his experience was working within the MCU, because somebody pointed out the online the schism in tone between the ending of Multiverse of Madness. Have you guys seen this?
I haven't watched it yet.
No.
I don't really watch the Marvel movies until like they've been out for years, and then I just binge a bunch of them.
Fair enough. Never mind. I'll be very vague in this description, but the ending.
Oh, I don't give a shit about spoilers.
Okay.
Those things are
Yeah.
eye candy, and that's it.
Yeah.
No, it doesn't matter to me.
The ending of the film before we get into the MCU must have like mid-credit and post-credit scenes is essentially like a horror shot of the consequences of Doctor Strange's actions throughout the course of the movie. And then when we get the post-credit scene, it's essentially completely written off this horror moment he has at the end of the actual runtime of the film to set up some further fucking narrative. And I want to know how much the, fitting into the cookie cutter of the MCU annoyed Sam Raimi. I really want to hear him talk eventually about his opinion of working under those conditions. But anyway, so so High has been convinced, potentially to do this robbery, writes a letter to Ed, and the motorcyclist is proving himself to be real, in my opinion, for the first time in the film, because he interacts directly with other characters. He shows up at the unpainted furniture store and insists on speaking to Mr. Arizona. This is also where we get the name of this character. He introduces himself as Leonard Smalls.
Same name as the big dude from Of Mice and Men.
Yeah, I did not catch.
I didn't
Yeah.
catch that, but very, very good reference.
It's Letty.
Yeah, he introduces himself as a manhunter or a tracker. Says he's even had occasion to hunt babies. And Smalls explains that the $25,000 reward offered by the Arizonas does not actually compete with the black market value for a healthy baby. And
he should know.
Yeah, because he was sold on the
because
black
he was
market.
sold for 30,000
in 1954 money.
Yes, very specifically in 1954 money. So he requests $50,000 instead. Mr. Arizona balks at this. He believes this to be extortion and goes to call the cops or security or something like that. And Mr. Leonard Smalls pulls a Batman and disappears from the room. as Mr. Arizona's back is turned to make this phone call.
Very nimble
Um,
for a big guy.
yeah, it moves real quick. Moves real quick for a man of that size. Cut back to High and in his situation. Glenn shows up at the trailer the next day in a neck brace, very pissed off, and essentially threatens and extorts High himself. Now, Ed is out about town doing something or the other, and High is home alone with the baby and the fugitives. So when Glenn comes a knocking, High steps outside to have this conversation with him. And Glenn hits him with the fact that they've figured out that High and Ed have kidnapped Nathan Jr. From the Arizona family. And he says normally they would just turn them in and collect the reward, but Dot really wants another baby. And there's something wrong with his sperm, which he has mentioned several times thus far in the film. So Dot wants the baby for herself. So High has a choice of either turning over the kid or being turned in himself by Glenn, and he drives off. Unfortunately, Gail and DeVell have overheard this information and grabbed the kid for themselves. Gail and High fight in the living room. This scene is fantastic and hilarious, and I think a foundational element in a bunch of comedies. This reminded me very much of the Seth Rogen Danny McBride fight in Pineapple Express, if you guys remember that. I think that is sort of a pale imitation of this fight scene because they go smashing through walls. Very funny in general, essentially wrecking the place before Gail and DeVell tie up High to a chair and leave with the baby. As they're driving down the road, they literally pass Ed on our way back home, and Ed gives like a good riddance sort of line as they fly by, not realizing that they have the kid.
Perfect.
Yep. Very solid. So the next scene that we get is High having been untied by Ed and informing presumably Ed about exactly what occurred. High is doing a bit of monologuing sort of at Ed about how they're going to get the baby back. He's loading guns, and he gives sort of an impassioned speech about how he's going to fix all this. And Ed is just silent and furious through the whole scene. Cut back to Gail and Avell, who are driving with the baby. They stop to get Huggies since the baby had an accident. And of course, they rob the place instead of just paying for diapers.
The way they rob the place is very funny. He's like asking the shopkeeper, like, hey, how do you put these Huggies on? And the shopkeeper like explains it. He's like, oh, okay, thanks. We'll also take one of these and one of these and one of these. And then he pulls out the gun and all that money in the cash register.
Yeah. Also, by the way, at this point in the film, I was like, I'm positive we're not going to see a pack of Huggies paid for at any point in time in this film.
And don't.
I was correct.
Yeah.
I was absolutely correct. Every pack of diapers in this film that you see in this film are stolen 100% of the time. But there's also another funny bit where Avell, who clearly lacks some level of cognitive function, is giving instructions to the shopkeep to count to a specific number and then count back. And also that he'll be back to check to make sure that the man isn't cheating. So he leaves. And as he leaves the store, Gail is out of the vehicle with Nathan Jr. in a car seat, detachable car seat or whatever, that he sets on the roof of the car as he helps Avell load the stolen goods into the vehicle, and they get in and take off. Of course, they pull out with the baby's seat still on the top of the car. And they make it some distance down the road before they realize it and pull a U-turn and head back. This is where we really learn that the Coen brothers love almost nothing in this world more than just letting John Goodman scream for an absurd amount of time on camera. Because the entire ride back, John Goodman is just screaming. It's just screaming, looking at Forsyth screaming, looking back at the camera screaming, just screaming. And it's a great scene. I don't know if I'm doing it justice by describing this.
It's one
There,
of life's simple pleasures.
there's another very funny part of this scene, which is as he's leaving the robbery, he says, "Now get on the ground and count to 800, and I'll be back in 5 minutes to make sure you're still counting." So the guy's counting, he's like 643, 644. Oh, screw it. And then he gets up, and that's when he sees the car coming back, and he hits the ground again and just starts 647,
Yeah.
648.
Yeah. I didn't forget it. We were circling back
Damn
around
it.
to that. I
Damn it, I ruined
specifically
it.
said no, it was perfect because I specifically set it up for that. He's just like, we'll come back and check that you're not cheating. And when he finally gives up and looks up, the car is coming back down the road, and he's like, oh hell, and gets back down and continues counting. And they find, of course, the baby in the road where the car seat fell off. They retrieve the kid, and Gail is forced to promise Vel that they won't ever give him up again because Vel has now gotten very emotionally attached to this child. Meanwhile, Ed and Hai are in pursuit of the Prison Break brothers, and they have a bit of a heart to heart where Ed sort of indicates that she doesn't think that she'll never forgive them. They can't be together if they don't rescue this child. And also, even if they do get the child back, Ed thinks that they shouldn't be together anymore. And she regrets initiating and participating in the kidnapping of the kid. And she thinks that, I think that her position was that originally she thought her background in law enforcement would counteract Hai's predilection to breaking the law, but she's realizing that they're both sort of prone to brash law breaking decisions, and that's not a good combination, just sort of in general. A little bit of a low note in their relationship, I think. But from there, we cut directly to Smalls investigating Ed and Hai's trailer. The place is wrecked, of course, but he does find the clipping of the bank, the news clipping of a story about the bank that the brothers are intending to rob. And of course, this sets up the perfect time to cut to Gail and Avell arriving at the bank that they want to rob and going in and bringing the baby with them, which is hilarious. The reason why they do this is because Avell suggests that they shouldn't let the baby out of their sight at this point. So they're both wielding shotguns, and I think it's Gail who is hefting the baby car seat along with them as they go into the bank. And Gail shouts out, "Everybody freeze and get down on the ground." And everybody freezes and puts their hands up, but nobody gets down on the ground. And there's an old guy in the line at the bank who says, "Well, what is it, son? Do you want us to freeze or do you want us to get down?" I did not get the name of the song, but I just want to throw this anecdote in there. My fiance was walking by when this line was uttered, and she mentioned that this was sampled in a song. Apparently, this exact
Oh,
line will,
Huh.
yeah.
Interesting.
I'm receiving notes from off stage that I will get the name of that song shortly. But yeah, we'll get back to that. But this particular line was actually sampled for a specific song. Still a very, very funny scene in general. But this robbery goes about how you would expect for these two cartoon characters, essentially.
I got that song and artist if you're curious.
I'm very curious. What is it?
Flamingosis. The name of the song is Raising Arizona.
Okay, so the name
Huh.
of the song is Raising Arizona.
Unless that was sampled elsewhere, but I did find that that is an example of that specific line being sampled
What
in a
was the
film.
name of the artist again?
Flamingosis.
Flamingosis?
No, it was somebody else.
Oh, this was another one.
Okay, so
Oh.
that's been sampled multiple times.
Don't say it. I gotta make sure.
Okay, all right. Well, we're gonna double check that. So while we see the bank tellers loading the bank bags of cash, they slip in a comically large air pressurized canister of paint dye, which, by the way, if you're ever planning on robbing a bank, these devices are much smaller these days and usually hidden within stacks of bills. And they spray dye everywhere, all over the bills. and usually the robbers themselves. Most notably, or most beautifully demonstrated in the movie I think it's called Hard Times with Robert Pattinson. If you haven't seen it, highly recommend that film. Also, Ryan, I did get the details on that song. This is a totally different song that line was sampled for by a Gilly the Kid, and
Ain't that some shit?
the song title is "Get Down on the Ground."
Sick. So that's been sampled in two separate songs.
At least two songs. This line has been sampled from. Amazing.
Ryan, you'll have to pull that audio.
I can throw it in the group chat.
Hell yeah.
You edit in 10 seconds of it. That's fair use. Nobody can sue us for it. So the brothers flee the scene of this bank robbery after stealing the cash. And of course, they realize again that they forgot the baby. And at the moment that they realize this, the dye canister goes off in the cab of the car. Dye sprays all over them, all over the money, all over the windshield. They can't see shit. They almost crash directly into High and Ed as they're traveling towards the bank. And once more, the baby is smack dab in the center of the road. Classic callback scenario. You know what else is a callback? Us doing an ad read.
That is a callback. You're guaranteed to get that callback once an episode. It's my favorite part too, because I enjoy riffing and trying to come up with things very, very quickly. It's one of my favorite things to do. I work in sales, so I get to do it constantly.
My goal for you personally, Rich, is for us to get an actual sponsorship where they let us read the ad ourselves instead of a self-inserted one.
Yeah, that'd be dope.
And see how quickly we could lose sponsorships, because there's no way.
It'll be one episode. I'm just gonna burn through people. As a matter of fact, I'm just gonna start Googling like the people who just like it's like, yeah, just throw an ad on, put on a discount code, and you can just fucking do it. I was like, Raid Shadow Legends, do you want a scam of a game that's fucking terrible?
The way I know that Raid Shadow Legends is a bad video game is that I've never seen porn drawn of any of the characters.
I don't know if you're looking hard enough. There is literally a term to describe the fact that porn is drawn about any subject you could possibly imagine.
I mean, I'll be right back. I'm going to go ruin my Google searches.
But
yeah,
no,
just type in Rule 34, Raid Shadow Legends.
You know what? Thinking about us doing our own ad reads reminds me of is a very old, goofy film starring Tom
there
Arnold.
it is. I found it already.
There you go. Told you. I fucking told you. There's a reason it's called a rule and not an exception. But have either of you seen the movie Carpool?
I think so.
Years
it's probably
and
been
years
a while.
ago.
Yeah. So there's a kid in the movie Carpool who just like riffs off a bunch of like corporate mottos for a company that I think one of the dad works for or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, would you stop it? And he's like, look, I'm not making these up. I just memorize them. And he's like, I think it was like Hammer Mills. I'm not sure if it was supposed to be like the paper company or just a stand-in similar name. But he's like, Hammer Mills kills bugs dead. Hammer Mills, you're soaking in it.
Patreon.com/Nick Cage fight kills bugs dead.
You're soaking in it.
You're soaking in it.
You're gonna be soaking in our episodes without ads, and then the other movies that we watch are gonna kill the bugs for you.
Yep, the wrestler coming soon.
Yeah, the wrestler, he kills so many bugs in that movie.
With pile
fucking
driving.
Leonard Small kills at least one bug in this movie.
All right, now listen to these ads for the Brigham Young University or
Hammer Mill. If I mean they're listening to us, I can't wait to like check Instagram later and there be a Hammer Mill ad.
There you go. Either way, enjoy these.
Okay, here's a little custom ad because I was talking to your fiance earlier, Josh, and listen to more Scene Queen.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. Listen to more Scene Queen.
We fully endorse that.
Her album is called Bimbo Core, and that's amazing.
Oh yeah, no, that's a whole bit. That's a whole movement nowadays. If you haven't checked that out,
Oh, I love it.
it seems intriguing. So yeah, the brothers are basically disabled by this dye pack that goes off. Baby's in the middle of the road, and as High and Ed approach from one direction, the nightmare biker Ghost Rider is coming from the other. Preceded, of course, by like a massive explosion. It's like a mini mushroom cloud heralding his arrival on the scene. The biker scoops the baby off the road as he drives by, reminiscent of High snagging those Huggies earlier, and just pulls one of the shotguns from his back and blasts a massive hole in High and Ed's windshield before circling back to take another shot and whipping a grenade into the car. Ed and High managed to flee just before their station wagon explodes entirely. The cyclist wheels back around. Securing the baby is not the end of his mission, apparently. But High manages to dodge and then cling to his bike for a few feet before getting stomped off.
Yeah, well, he did say he was going to kick their butts.
He did. He did say he was going to kick their butts, which seems like an undersell for a man who has a number of grenades pinned to his vest.
For a man who legitimately beat up Leon Spinks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So Ed charges at the biker, who draws two throwing knives. High manages to pull his gun and shoot one of the biker's hands, causing him to drop one of the knives before the biker flings the other knife he has, knocking the gun out of High's hand. Ed snags the baby and flees, pursued very closely by the biker. The biker chases her down an alley, and as right after she exits, a 2x4 enters scene, wielded by High, and knocks the biker off of his bike. Now he's just a scary dude. Can't even really describe him as a biker any longer. The man draws a weighted chain, which is kind of an obscure weapon. Like, I know,
Yeah.
No, that's standard biker shit, actually.
well, regular chains.
Yeah.
This is like a weighted chain. This is like an anime weapon.
Again,
You know
this
what I
is
mean?
more Ghost Rider shit.
It is some Ghost Rider shit.
It is absolutely, man. This was too prescient when it came to fucking Nick Cage's filmography. Um the cyclist uses the weighted chain to pull the board out of High's grasp, and then proceeds to beat the shit out of High a bit. He bitch slaps him a couple of times, and then pulls High into what looks to be a imminently lethal bear hug. And as High is scrambling to defend against this, he pulls down the biker's shirt to reveal a Woody the Woodpecker tattoo on the biker's chest. This tattoo is identical to one that High has on his own arm.
You know what else it's identical to?
Hmm.
In Gone in 60 Seconds, there's a decal of that specific Woody the Woodpecker pose on the window at the mechanic shop where they all hang out.
There
really?
is.
Yeah. I think I shouted that out in that episode, but I thought it prudent to mention it here.
Interesting.
Maybe Nick Cage is a big Woody the Woodpecker fan.
Maybe. I know
Who
David
was-
Lynch was.
Yeah, I was gonna say that the Woody the Woodpecker thing always makes me think of the Lynch interview where he bought like 15 stuffed Woody the Woodpeckers from like a gas station or something to quote save them.
Yeah, that's a wild
That
fucking
is some
interview.
that is some shit I would do.
Hey, it makes sense to me.
Yeah, and he says that they're no longer with him anymore because certain personality traits started coming out and they were no longer a cool hang.
It's so fucking bizarre.
I love that man.
Anyway, despite this Woody the Woodpecker identical tattoo leading us to believe there's some weird connection between High and this nightmare biker, the biker punches High, knocking him away. And as he draws down on High with one of his shotguns, High reveals very, very classic, like closed fist to open fist, showing he has a separated pin from a grenade. This grenade, of course, being attached to the biker's vest, and it explodes, blowing the biker to bits. So no more Nightmare Biker. And so long, Josh's theory that the biker was just a metaphor for High's criminal nature, sabotaging his chances for normalcy and happiness.
In the immortal words of Sigmund Freud, sometimes a big dude is just a big dude.
Yes. And sometimes he gets blown to bits by a grenade. It happens, man. So, with the conflicts essentially resolved at this point, Ed and High return Nathan Jr., we think, to his crib. Now, they're caught in the act by a gun wielding Mr. Arizona, who interrogates them really if they're in league with Smalls, and they say no, they saved the baby from him. They also say that they have no interest in the $25,000 reward. And at some point, some element of their dialogue clues Mr. Arizona in, and he figures out that they're the ones that took the kid in the first place. And Ed and High readily confess to this fact. Mr. Arizona, though, just being kind of a cool dude for such a weird entrepreneurial shitbag type, says he's not going to call the authorities, but he wants to know why they did it. And they explain. And despite all of this conflict, Mr. Arizona actually gives them a bit of useful worldly advice, and suggests that they sleep on any decisions as to whether or not to stay together now that this misadventure has come to a conclusion, before they go through with any of it. Right? After doing this sort of semi-kindness to him, he reverts immediately back to being a douchebag and tells them to leave the way they came in, which is through the window and down a ladder.
But he doesn't say it like a dickhead. He says it as though they're like friends, that like he's just telling them like, okay, it's time to leave. He's not like telling them, he's not like forcefully go boys, like go back out the window. He's just like, oh yeah, you can leave the way you came in.
Yeah. I mean, I thought it was kind of funny, but just also in general, an interesting insight to a character that's been kind of farcical thus far throughout the film, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, lend him a little bit more of a semblance of a real human being to a certain extent. Either way, Ed and High go back home, and High has another dream that evening. He sees Gail and Avelle going back to the hole that they used to escape from prison, to go back into prison to bust back in, because being on the outside clearly wasn't working for them.
Yeah, it wasn't their time yet.
Exactly. Which I thought this is a hilarious inversion of one of Gail's lines earlier in the film, which was his explanation for why they broke out of prison was that they thought they had nothing left to learn from the institution. So seeing them go back in High's sort of precog dream is yeah, they were wrong about that assumption. I thought it was very funny. He sees a clip. My notes just indicate, so you guys can flesh out the details if you recall. I just wrote he sees Glenn being a dick still. I can't remember exactly what this is referencing, but I'm assuming it was just Glenn being a dick.
It's specifically that he makes another Polish joke, and then it zooms in on the name tag of the cop that's got him pulled over.
And it's like, Kowalski.
It's Kowalski, yeah.
Yeah. I should have been more detailed there. Yeah, he makes a Polish joke to a Polish cop who pulled him over.
What a weird bit of racism to have inside of you. Like, God, I just hate Polish people so much.
But then he dreams, and again, I mean, just drawing back from his initial dream that turned out to be incredibly accurate. He dreams that he and Ed are old together and being visited by their kids and their kids' children, their grandkids. And
he also has a dream of Nathan Jr. and him hoping that he left some sort of imprint on him, even if he doesn't realize it.
Yeah, and this dream of Nathan Jr. is him just fucking killing it on the football field. But cutting back to, Ed and him growing old together and having a family, regardless of how they actually obtained it, he describes this potential future occurring in some sort of utopia. He's not quite sure where it is. the ending line of the film is maybe it's Utah. Roll credits. Solid film.
Yeah, flawless.
Yeah,
No notes.
Really?
Yeah, so and we had a conversation because I think Ryan, you said in the group chat like, oh, this might be Nick Cage's best comedy, and I'm like, nope, Moonstruck exists.
Yeah, I kind of agree that Moonstruck does edge it out just a little bit on the strength of the like dialogue comedy, but if we're talking just pure physical comedy, this one's got it. It's really got it.
I think flat comedy this wins against Moonstruck. Don't get me wrong, Moonstruck is one of the best films that we've watched, hands down. But I think a lot of what secures that position for it is a juxtaposition of very solid comedy, incredible levels of it in Italianness that, the likes of which we have not seen before, like over 9,000 levels of Italian, but also just a disturbing undercurrent of lust meets love.
Yeah.
This doesn't have quite the same disturbing undercurrents because all of it is sort of a parody of itself. It's cartoonish, essentially. So whereas, like, for instance, the pillow talk in Moonstruck being absolutely disturbing out of context, the criminal elements in this film are all very much in the context of this sort of cartoon portrayal of people, trying to meet their needs in absurdly underhanded fashion. So straight comedy, I think this plays a bit better than Moonstruck. Overall film, I do think Moonstruck still edges this out, but this is a very close second.
It's very
nose
strong.
and nose.
It's going to be interesting when we get to a ranking episode, which actually I was just counting episodes because so we had the last ranking episode, then we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. This would be 9. So we have 2 more movies after this before we hit another ranking episode, and it's going to be interesting.
It's going to be a change in format. We can't possibly, as we get deeper into this filmography, we can't
go as deep as we were.
44 fucking films, in a single episode. What we're going to have to do is we're going to have to do a top 10 and a bottom 10. If that, even that's going to be a little bit complicated. But
maybe do like a top 5, a bottom 5, and just like the shout outs we want to give.
Yeah, honorable mentions and gatekeepers.
And wherever the like previous 11 block ended up landing, I think is important information.
Yeah, like we should definitely do this is the movie that is just above Between Worlds. Because to me, that's the gatekeeper of, is this a good movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the gatekeeper films are going to be very important to keep in the discussion because they set a bar in a lot of these categories, which it's interesting. I like movies, obviously all of us on this podcast like movies, but watching through the entire catalog of a single actor is not an undertaking I've ever participated in before. So finding these movies that set like hard limits to how you consider other entries in their filmography is kind of new to me, but very integral, I think, to the overall conversation. Like Between Worlds is, the further we get into this, the more criminally underrated I'm convinced that film is. And not to be biased towards Ryan, I got to give Rich's favorite bar setter a shout out too, Kill Chain. I mean, those types of entries, not very widely known and very, very solid films to watch, ones that we would recommend. And we kind of don't do that lightly here.
Yeah, and they're very important. Like you said, they're very important films in this filmography because like again, with no disrespect to Between Worlds, but that is kind of the bar for me, which is, if this is a very good film, it is above Between Worlds. It has to get past that bar. Where everything that I watch it in the lens of, okay, is this better than Between Worlds? Because
not a lot of movies are.
Yeah.
Because we have some movies that we all enjoy. Like a good one a good example of this is Season of the Witch. We all pretty much enjoyed Season of the Witch.
I'd put it, I mean, for me, that's
Is
below
it?
Between Worlds.
I was about to
It
say,
is.
is it better than Between Worlds? And the answer is no.
No.
It is
But-
not better than Between Worlds. So therefore, like, it's a fine movie. It's a movie that I'll probably end up watching again. But it's not a movie that I would put in any type of top tier, because your top tier, what separates the wheat from the chaff, is Between Worlds to me.
Yeah, that's like I said, that's definitely a bar to clear, and it's a high bar. And people like to joke or poke fun. I mean, shitting on Nicolas Cage films is such a trope. It's been featured in a Jean Lejeune song. I'm not a big Nicolas Cage fan. I think that's from the Everyday Normal Guy song. But we all know he had some tax problems. He just had to start taking jobs that were available at the time. But that doesn't mean that these projects were not worth a second look. And the further we get into this, the more that rings true. Now, is there a fair amount of trash? Sure. But we love trash here.
I did not love Pay the Ghost. Let's be honest here. Some of that
this
trash should stay in the dumpster.
We are at our core little trash pandas, little raccoons just rooting through another human being's professional difficulties. But there's some gold in them there trash hills, man. And this, of course, is not that. This is one of the diamonds at the absolute top of the pile, recommended in the same breath as Moonstruck. If you haven't seen these films for whatever reason, you think they're too old or not relevant, you're wrong. You will enjoy this.
This
no matter what your particular taste is.
For me, this is an unqualified recommendation. I would recommend this to literally anyone.
Yeah,
I think anyone could get a kick out of this. It's a great movie for kids. Like, there's not a lot of vulgarity in it.
Yeah,
that
again,
would turn parents away.
I was introduced to this movie when I was like 9 or 10 years old.
I think that's like the perfect age for it, because like we said, it is a live action cartoon.
And it is sort of like a fantasy movie on top of everything, too. Because of all of the absurdities happening, because of, if we wanted to get like all scholarly about this, we could have the whole conversation of, is this really happening? With the whole Nick Cage dreaming up the biker and the biker appears.
Yeah, and the biker being real and not just 100% a metaphor. We were talking before we started rolling on this, where I said that I think a majority of the Coen brothers films are like fables, right? I think there's some
when they're not doing like a genre pastiche, like The Big Lebowski's a 40s detective movie, Burn After Reading's a spy flick. Like, when they're not doing something like that, it's usually fables.
I think sometimes even when they're doing something like that, there is a fable element to it, where there's some realistic elements, and then there is some metaphorical, moral that is the iron core of the story in general. Like No Country for Old Men is about fucking retirement, and otherwise plays as a straight crime action drama flick. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This is a trend in their storytelling, but this one is 100%. I mean, similar to other entries in their catalog, is kind of fable-ish. There's some elements that seem introduced as metaphors that are a reality in the story itself. But
right, to me, this is a movie about human nature.
Yeah, it is. And in my opinion, also speaks to the nuances and intricacies of a long-term relationship. Identifying the things between folks that can spiral into something bad, without discounting the other elements that can strengthen a personal romantic collaboration. It's a great story, and it also has another strength that I always like to see, in that it's a PG-13 movie that you're not cognizant that it's a PG-13 movie the entire time you're watching it. It doesn't feel like it was written to exist in that specific box.
Honestly, I would have pegged this as a PG. Like, I'm kind of surprised to hear that it is a PG-13.
Right, because like normally, like when I think of late 80s, early 90s PG-13 movies, You get a decent amount of cursing. You get shit thrown around a decent
Mild
amount. You can't.
nudity.
Yeah, maybe like one boob for 2 seconds. No F words.
Yeah, don't forget whatchamacallit, the helicopter movie that I had to prove.
Firebirds. Yeah.
Firebirds. There you go.
Yeah, like to me, a PG-13 comedy, like the quintessential PG-13 comedy is Ace Ventura: Pet Detective.
I thought you were gonna say Spaceballs.
No, that was PG actually, but it was before the rating system changed.
There you go.
No, to me, it is Ace Ventura: Pet Detective. There's not an F-bomb. It's super lewd, but not in your face lewd. Like it's not like Porky's.
Yeah, it's no Porky's.
It's no Porky's.
Not a lot of movies are, and that's a good thing.
But yeah, like, and with this, like, it's one of the movies you're never cognizant of the rating, which I agree with you is a good thing. It makes it strong.
When you can notice that a movie put itself in a box for the rating specifically. This is not one of those. In fact, like if you're not aware of the rating when you watch it, it wouldn't even be something that you would be looking for at all.
Like honestly, I think the only reason that we hit a PG-13 is to talk about swinging with Glenn. I think that might be the one thing, because all the violence is cartoony. Nobody actually gets hit by a bullet until fucking Letty ends up blowing up at the end.
I was gonna say the guns and grenades. They blow up a bunny.
I'm
sure no bunnies were harmed in the making of the film.
This is 1987. Guns are still considered like a totemic part of American culture in a way where they're not. The realities of gun violence have not exactly caught up to the American consciousness. I
was gonna say, Are you arguing that the whole Second Amendment thing is less prevalent these days?
No. But I will make the argument though that any movie that comes out nowadays is going to skew conservative or liberal. So if you have a movie that's heavily with like that has a lot of guns, but they don't play into the villain's role, like it skews a little bit liberal. And this doesn't really have anything like that. So that's a
fair point.
That's what I kind of think that Ryan might be getting at as today versus 1987, where guns were just guns. Nowadays, a gun on a TV screen is going to convey some sort of message, whether it be
there's more the context
be endorsing or criticizing,
right?
And this is just a thing.
Yeah, the awareness of everyday gun violence was not there in the 80s, from like what I understand of the context from the media of that time.
Basically the political messaging of guns appearing in film or television was not nearly as significant pre-Columbine.
Absolutely. That's exactly the event that I was thinking kind of kicked off the maybe we shouldn't glorify gun violence so much, which is a very valid point, but something that has made movies less fun.
I mean, and not that it's slowed them down. I mean,
no, it is not.
We're living in a time where we're getting another John Wick movie, so
can't wait.
Yeah, no, me neither.
Love them.
So also,
I feel like me and Keanu would get along. We've got similar taste in Asian cinema.
Well, he comes like I do my best to try and coach myself out of any sort of parasocial relationship, but everything I've read about Keanu seems like he's a really nice guy, so far as I can tell. It would break my heart, like when people are like, yeah, if Tom Hanks ever got credibly accused of a horrible thing that you see in Hollywood all the time, it would break America. For me, it's Keanu Reeves.
Absolutely.
100%. I think he is way more America's sweetheart than Hanks.
Oh, you see, I just assume that they're all awful and that some of them are just better at hiding their awfulness. So then that way, when something bad happens, I can still watch Point Break.
That's fair. I mean, for me, the big tipping point for Keanu is I saw he was on like a Japanese fucking like daytime talk show, and they're like, "Who's your like acting hero?" He said Sonny Kaiba because he's a big fan of like the Street Fighter movies and the Executioner and shit like that. And they pull Sonny Kaiba out from the back of the fucking stage, and he's got like tears in his eyes, and they're like, "Oh, he's just like me for real." That's how I would react to seeing Sonny Kaiba in real life.
See, that's just another in the list of endearing elements of Keanu Reeves to me. Ryan, I know you and I talked about this pre-recording, and that we've talked about it likely on the podcast previously, but we did mention noticing some similarities between the cartoonish nature of this film and a later film starring Clive Owens called Shoot 'Em Up,
Yes.
which was another live action film that drew heavily on cartoonish action influences. Shoot 'Em Up, of course, being primarily a reference to Bugs Bunny Looney Tunes shit. Not necessarily a movie that we will cover. Maybe at some point in a Patreon episode.
I'll find the fucking 8 Degrees to Nicolas Cage for that. I'll rewatch that movie anytime.
Yeah, but incredibly similar elements of.
I think I already have a connection between the two, and it's actually Pay the Ghost.
Oh God, how?
Oh God, what's the connection?
Stephen McHattie.
Okay, was he an actor? Or
He played the blind man.
Oh,
in Pay the
shit.
Ghost.
Was he in Shoot 'Em Up?
Sure was.
Holy shit! I didn't notice that when we were doing housekeeping last.
I saw
set
the
of
name.
episodes.
So this is how I know whether or not I've looked somebody up for this podcast. Is I have a separate Chrome profile. So when I go to Wikipedia and I see the name is in purple, that I already clicked on it, I must have already done some Nick Cage research on him.
Okay.
So I saw that, I'm just like, he must have been in something. And I looked at the picture, I'm like, that's the blind man.
All right, solid.
That's absolutely amazing. But yeah, that is I'm not sure if it's a direct homage to this film, but the concept of taking basically Looney Tunes and applying it to a live action film, Shoot 'Em Up is definitely another example of that. As far as how much influence this film had on that, who's to say specifically? We don't have any explicit evidence of that, but I did want to give it a shout out, since we're talking about movies in general and what we recommend watching. Shoot 'Em Up is a decent mindless action flick, again based on drawing cartoonish elements into an otherwise live action film. I don't know if there's too much more to say here. I think we've really extolled the virtues of this film. It's great. Watch it. Highly recommend to anybody. You can watch it with your parents to keep relevant with current online discourse. There's no uncomfortable sex scenes or anything like that. You can watch it with parents, grandparents. It's funny, it's entertaining, and it has enough depth and nuance that the lack of these adult themes is not going to draw away from an adult's enjoyment of it. This is kind of timeless.
Yeah. I was going to say, I think it's about time to wrap up, and I'll wrap up with the final two things. Thing number one being the headline that I had mentioned on last episode is fake.
Thank God.
Tucker Carlson did not try to cancel the Dead Kennedys over Nazi punks fuck off, but I feel like we're like 2 steps away from that. But the second thing is the next movie.
Yeah, what do you got for us?
Please. What do we got?
So, Violent Taskmaster. What will you have us do?
I don't know how this is going to be, because I'm looking at the Wikipedia page and it's similar to both Kill Chain and Between Worlds.
Ooh.
Just looking at the Wikipedia page, like the Rotten Tomatoes rating, it's running with the devil. It is Nick Cage and Lawrence Fishburne in a direct-to-DVD movie. There is 2 sentences of plot.
I see that.
We were all here thinking at first, like, okay, Kill Chain's gonna suck, and it didn't. I know I thought Between Worlds was gonna suck, and I was so wrong on both of those. So all of these directed DVDs, I am 100% ready to give a chance.
I do not recognize any of these actors other than Fish and Cage.
Leslie Bibb.
Adam Goldberg played. The only thing I really remember him from.
Oh, okay, I know this Leslie lady
is the Hebrew Hammer.
Oh shit, that movie rules.
Movie does fucking rule.
Which played on Comedy Central, And the stinger for it was him pulling 2 guns and yelling Shabbat Shalom, motherfucker.
Yes, yeah, very specifically, yeah.
But yeah, no, Leslie Bibb was in 2 of the Iron Mans, law-abiding citizen. I think she was a paralegal or an ADA or some shit like that. She's relatively recognizable. I will say, first blush, the director also wrote this film and has a very small CV, so we do not have a lot to go on here. That being said, if Lawrence Fishburne signed on to it with Nick Cage, I'm all in. That I'm fine with that. Those 2 can carry a fucking direct to DVD film 100%.
Running time of 100 minutes, so it's
Not
over
the
the
worst.
90, but not the worst.
Yeah, no. I'm intrigued. I'm very interested in this film. Also going to be easy housekeeping since most of the supporting cast is relative unknowns. We'll see if we can find any diamonds in the rough there.
A couple of them were in Dazed and Confused.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, that's where the Hebrew Hammer is also from.
Yeah, it's him and another guy that's in this movie as well. Cole Hauser. Cool name.
That is a
That
pretty
is a
good
cool
name.
Is it is it a stage name?
I would imagine so. Oh shit, yeah, this guy was in Pitch Black. I do know who this man is.
That man was in Good Will Hunting.
Who is he in Good Will Hunting?
Billy. He was also in Too Fast, Too Furious. Rich.
Oh, hold on. I gotta pull up the Wikipedia again.
He was Carter Verone.
Oh, now I'm gonna have to watch Too Fast, Too Furious again.
Oh,
Shit,
also
yeah.
apparently is a staple in Yellowstone, which is a
Still never watched it.
Show
Yeah,
for
me
grandpas.
Me neither. But staple, 47 episodes. Yeah, also he's in one of my favorite movies to tease a buddy of mine who's a big tech head and has a lot of ideas of how technology is going to influence the future. One of my favorite movies to demonstrate how silly or dystopian that would be the Johnny Depp film Transcendence. He was also in that.
Huh.
It's a goofball flick, but we will cover all of that and more in depth in our housekeeping in the next episode covering this film. And honestly, I have high hopes. I do have high hopes. We had a couple of stinkers, some
I'm ready to be surprised.
I am too. We have learned, we've been humbled. Some of these direct to DVDs can be fantastic. They can be trend setters. They can be bars to be leapt by higher quality films. Maybe
there's a lot of things that these movies can be. I mean, but it can also be sunny.
It could be dog shit.
Yeah, like like there's Zandali, which
I loved Zandali.
Which wasn't great, but it definitely was not the worst. I personally enjoyed it.
Look, as far
I
as
love a weird horny mess of a movie,
yeah,
and that was a weird horny mess of a movie.
As far as erotic thrillers starring Nick Cage are concerned, Zandali set a bar that City of Angels could not clear.
Oh man, City of Angels. That was rough. That was
one of the worst movies we watched. That's like one of the worst movies I've ever seen.
Look,
I forgot we already watched it.
See me. You know what I mean? Because I don't think that they'd understand.
Because everything's made to be broken.
Yeah.
And I just want you to know who I am.
Everything's made to be broken. I hope they break every fucking film reel of City of Angels.
No. I will say one thing in defense of City of Angels. The only thing that kept me from shutting down the note taking was Nick Offerman showing up. Is it red? Yeah, I will not get that out of my head. All right.
Hit him with the Twitter. Hit him with the Twitter.
Yeah, absolutely. Please go ahead and interact with us on Twitter. We're going to have some polls deciding whether or not headlines are real or fake. You can find us at cagefight_pod. Please give us a follow before Elon Musk bans us for making fun of the Cybertruck.
Patreon, and when he
PS2 looking
does,
ass car.
Yeah.
when he does, you can follow us on patreon.com/Nick Cage Fight, where we will make fun of the Cybertruck some more. But you can also listen to all of our episodes without ads. You can also get Patreon exclusive episodes. We will be experimenting with a live stream sometime this month as well to see how that goes. I have everything set up for it. It's just going to be a matter of location and how to do it without like getting kicked off of Twitch.
Yeah, consultations with free consultation local lawyers.
Yeah, because we need to figure out how to like actually make the logistics work.
We got to find the Saul Goodman of fair use legislation.
Yeah, so like I don't know, maybe we'll do. Remember when we found that episode of like it was like a pilot that he did that never aired on TV? I wonder if we did that.
Are you talking about trying to find public domain shit? I mean, what we need to do is we need to find very, very cheap general counsel who can advise us how we not get sued. And considering the fact that we won't use any of like Kanye West's music, I think we have a fair chance of dodging DMCA's. But we'll see.
So if we flip the video, I think that gets around Twitch's like trigger system. But I think the audio might get us hit for
I have an idea
movies.
for the audio. So if our viewers are not aware of this, I'm a big fan of the old news specials To Catch a Predator. And most of those are unable to be purchased in any legitimate sense, but there's a lot of cuts of them on YouTube. And the way I found they've gotten free from the automatic audio trackers for the DMCA's is they took some of the sound clips of the actors and actresses that played the underage individuals and just inserted them after the most insane transcript readings. So as every time somebody says something god awful, you just hear an "oh dang" breaking up the audio. So maybe we can make a soundboard to get.
Well, we'll be talking over it a decent amount. So.
Yeah,
that is also.
I mean, commentary is fair use.
That's true, and there's also like particular amounts of time that we could, portray actual footage or audio from those things. The problem with that is just if somebody with more money for lawyers decides to take offense to it, we'd have to take down the content. So
well, yeah,
show up live. That's a good reason to show up live, because who knows how long it'll stick around.
Yeah, show up live and we'll get that figured out. Outside of that, I think we're done. We're like 15 minutes over time.
Yeah, no, I agree. Great film. Fucking watch it, and tune in next time for our Running with the Devil. It should be good. Might be shit. Who knows? But we'll make it entertaining at the very least. That's our promise to you, listener. And as always, we appreciate you.
Bye-bye.